Welcome to part 2 of my interview with Arpad Szakal. This midweek episode focuses on cabin crew this time and their useful array of transferable skills. So much has been written about and spoken about flight deck crew of late, it's easy to forget that the cabin crew have been just as affected, if not even more so, by this pandemic. The soft skills developed by seasoned cabin crew are plentiful, and the demand for these skills is high. I was always amazed that the cabin crew had the ability to be cool, calm, and collected under the most difficult circumstances, dealing with tired and often delayed passengers. Arpad Szakal is an expert in the engineering, infrastructure, and manufacturing sectors, as well as aerospace and defense, a lawyer by trade, and a leading voice in career management topics. Arpad has been involved in this sector prior to the pandemic and therefore offers an holistic overview of the current situation we find ourselves in. Portfolio careers, pivoting your existing skill set, and managing the emotional roller coaster of a job search. Arpad offers very valuable advice. From Budapest and another successful LinkedIn connection of mine, Arpad Szakal. I hope you enjoy the interview.
Well, Arpad, welcome back to the Brian Air podcast. It was
Thank you for the invite, Brian. Great to be back.
It was such a nice chat we had a couple of weeks ago. I had such nice responses from so many people from across the board, not just people in aviation, but in all industries. It was a really nice response. So when you offered to do it again, but this time to focus on the cabin crew, I really jumped at that opportunity. So that's what we're going to do today, chat about the cabin crew this time. And I think very much, so much has been spoken about of the flight deck crew. So much has been spoken about sort of upper management and airline, but particularly flight deck crew. And it's easy to forget that there's the cabin crew as well, and they have been severely affected. There's more cabin crew in airlines than flight deck crew, and I hold a very, very soft spot for the cabin crew, and I'd like to get your knowledge and your information across to them. So thanks so much for talking to me tonight.
Pleasure, Brian.
Let's jump right into it, Arpad. Why don't you just give us an overview of what's happening in the industry from a cabin crew perspective at the moment? I'm talking about employment, redundancy, and new company setup perspective. What's your take on what's going on right now?
Yeah, the picture is quite bleak no matter where you're looking, Brian. It's we've just learned that Finnair, Cathay Pacific, SIA, that's Singapore Airlines, are doing another round of redundancies. Etihad and of the Emirates are still considering further cuts, not only pilots, but of course cabin crew as well. And this is a segment of the aviation population that doesn't get enough spotlight, although there are great many of them out there. It really doesn't matter whether you're looking at Australia, where Virgin Australia has just announced that they will definitely make some further cuts there as well, or you're looking at Asia, mentioned Cathay Pacific, mentioned Singapore Airlines, or here in Europe, Jet2, Virgin Atlantic, British Airways, Lufthansa in the continent. That would be another good example of some very, very significant cuts. And it's not only the airlines, Brian. I would just point out that Gatwick and London City Airport just announced some really significant cuts in their personnel as well. So let's not forget that it's not only the flying people, but also the ground-based stuff that are very much affected by all this. So it's and of course, the US, I haven't talked about the US. Obviously, there have been a stimulus package there, and not much has happened there in terms of redundancies yet, because it's the October deadline that the airlines have been given. But depending on whether the stimulus package is going to be extended we'll definitely see major cuts there. American Airlines, Delta, United, they're all talking about it. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yep. So it's across the board. I mean, we've been hearing this now week on week, and it's the news hasn't exactly improved, but at least we're getting a clearer picture of what we can expect now going forward. And this is why conversations with people like yourself are so important. It's this preparing for this new world that we're going into. Just going back a bit, if you are a cabin crew member, give us some practical tips now. If you've just been made redundant, what do you do?
Well, number one, know your redundancy package and understand how you budget, how long it's going to be enough. Take care of pension, take care of health insurance, things like that. Really, the practical things before you really sit down and really grieve. We talked about it last time as well, but until you really properly get through the grieving stage, you will find it very difficult to just get to the next stage, which is really identifying your target positions, your target industries, taking stock of your transferable skills or employable skills, whatever you call them, and really update your branding, whether it's LinkedIn, your CV, your cover letter. Those are really important things to just really think about. You need to think about how you present yourself at interviews. Most interviews are video interviews at the moment. So, and even your onboarding, wherever you join, it is likely to be online. So, and really use this time to advance your professional development, really. Take online courses, whatever you can to just add to your skill set. We will talk about it later, but it doesn't have to be a course, a university degree. It can be really something which is practical, Excel, things like that, which can really help you getting another role, which is a non-flying position outside of aviation.
Yeah, Arpad, I like what you say about, getting used to this device. Your next interview being over a computer is something very foreign to a lot of people. The only way we can get used to this is by starting to use it and starting to use different platforms. We spoke about LinkedIn last time and the importance of that. And I think that is such a good way to start picking up little tips here and there. And like you say, your onboarding interview or your onboarding will be online. It's going to be on platforms like how we're talking right now, and it's almost a skill set in itself. And with any skill, it needs to be learned. So I really encourage people to take that on as well. We've spoken about it, we've touched on it briefly, but the remote hiring process and the job hunting process, the pandemic has obviously affected all this tremendously. You've spoken about the changes that will happen doing it over a platform like Zoom, like Microsoft Teams. But anything else that cabin crew can start doing right now just to prepare themselves for that?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, the hiring process has gone virtual, and it will likely to stay that way. In terms of how you can really, the practical tips, you need to practice. You need to practice for these remote interviews. It's quite strange. It's quite unnatural, but this is the way it goes, and this is the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future. Yeah. It's a two-way process. Remember that you are basically interviewing the employer as well. It's not just them getting to know you, but think about really the questions in advance. What are you going to be asking? What is important for you? So what I would suggest anyone who is preparing for an online assessment or an online interview is to really sit down with a piece of paper, make sure that you understand what you need to get out of the interviewer, and really just see what is important for you, write it down, and don't forget to ask it. Basically, that would be it's my biggest advice, or my perhaps most useful advice. But it's also important to be human. Don't forget you're a human. Just because you're talking into a computer, they need to see your personality. They need to see that you are approachable, that you are basically someone that they can work with, that they can trust. So you really need to come across as an individual, not as a robot. So basically, it's show some personality. That would be the other thing I would highlight. Also, be mindful of the fact that there might be a number of interviews that you have to go through. Maybe in the past it was just one or two. Maybe now it's going to be three or more that companies will put you through, whether it's going to be with the same people or maybe different people from different departments. Just be prepared that the interview process at the moment takes a very long time. Companies are extremely cautious in terms of who they hire, because they just have to be. I mean, everyone is short on money at the moment, so it's just really important. But show your communication skills, show your collaboration skills, because they are more important than ever. Basically, you're adapting. Like, you need to be adaptable. You need to really demonstrate that you can integrate into a team, which is really difficult, Brian. It's even I don't really understand yet how you can really assess these things on a Zoom call or on a video interview, because you really need to see the person in flesh to be able to make this judgment. So, and also interviewers are particularly keen on understanding how you handle challenges. People don't just hire people to fill a seat or put a bum on a seat. It's about business challenges, business problems. And you need to position yourself as really someone who is maybe not an expert, but someone who can bring some added value to the organization, because that's what employers are looking for. But again, be yourself. That's the most important thing, and don't stress, because it really comes across even on Zoom.
Oh, that's great advice. Yeah, be authentic to yourself and be as free and real as possible. But I really like what you say about don't be scared to ask the interviewer a few questions as well. And that also shows that you are interested in their company and you're interested in their culture and you want to learn their culture. So I really like that advice.
And one last thing I would like to mention, Brian, I forgot. It's patience that you will need. The process is long. There are many people out there. It's not only you. You have to bear in mind that there are potentially 15 others, 20 others that they are interviewing at the same time with you. Yeah. So following up is always good, but don't overdo it, because at the moment you're not the only one who's being considered. So send them a thank you email, but then give them a week or so until you send a chaser email, basically.
I was going to ask you this later, but we're touching on it now anyway. You know, you've got to balance this emotional roller coaster yourself whilst you're going through this whole process. You know, looking for jobs is stressful. We need to dedicate time to that. But the whole process, it brings up anxiety. It's something new. It's not something we're not all comfortable with. Particularly those cabin crew that have been in these jobs for, 10 plus years. Now, all of a sudden, you're out there in the job market. You know, what advice can you offer from just balancing that emotional turmoil that you go through?
The best piece of advice, Brian, when it comes to the mental health aspect of the job search is surround yourself with people that can really provide you with some with advice, with some kindness, because you really need to be kind to yourself, but you also need to be kind to be surrounded by people who can really encourage you. You can't do this on your own. If you think you can, you're mistaken. This is a very difficult and lonely road, and it's impossible to do it without the encouragement and help and support of others. And this is what we mentioned it last time as well, but you can't do this all day, every day. You need to dedicate some time for other activities, basically, that take off your mind from the job search. I think realistically, what anyone can spend on this per day is 3 or 4 hours. If you ask me, it can be more, but it's not going to be effective. You will get bored. You will get demotivated. Remember, sometimes you don't hear back. Sometimes you're feeling that basically your application is just disappearing into a void. And sometimes you hear negative feedback. Sometimes they just say that, yeah, we wanted others.
Yeah.
You were not good enough.
Yeah.
And this is why surrounding yourself with people who can actually encourage you, help you, is the most important step.
And something valuable you offered last time is it's not necessarily your best friend or your family. Sometimes we need to go out and look for someone that's going to really give you that hard, honest truth, and someone with, good moral values, high standards, and someone that will encourage you to raise your own standards.
Yeah. Exactly. And this is, of course, difficult for a lot of people, but if you can, you should invest in a coach, or seek out some mentoring relationship with someone who has been there, done that, and came out on the other side, because you need a good example. You need to see that it is actually possible to transition into something else, basically, which is not aviation. So.
And maybe something we can just bring to the attention as well. Be careful of too many people out there or companies that are trying to make money off or make too much money off the vulnerable at the moment. We've made the pilots quite aware of this, but it's something the cabin crew should be aware of. There are people out there that are trying to take advantage.
Yeah, this is very important to cover, Brian, because be aware of any CV writers out there. There are really people who are trying to take advantage of very, very vulnerable individuals. You can't possibly promise that you will write someone's CV and you will get them 10 jobs. I've seen these the other day. You can't. You can coach someone in terms of what to look out for, in terms of how the CV should look like. But it's only the individual who actually has the examples, who has really the nitty-gritty that is needed to construct a CV. You can't interview someone enough to have all the information for you to go away and write a CV for someone else. I think that's when you really should be very cautious, basically.
Yeah, how do you, we're speaking about being authentic and being unique. Very difficult for someone else to be unique for you. It's impossible. Let's talk about transferable skills. It's a word that we're using a lot at the moment. What are the transferable skills for cabin crew?
I think there are a great many, but maybe just let's define what transferable skills are briefly, Brian, so that people really just understand and get that right. So these skills are portable. It means that you can use it in another setting, in another industry, in another role. These are flexible skills that you don't have to be a cabin crew to be able to use them. And it's something that really increases your employability, that you can just take with you, and they're not role specific. That's what transferable skills mean. It's generic. These are skills that employers, no matter what the industry is, no matter what the role is, they're looking for. And in terms of cabin crew, what are the top ones that I can think of? It's definitely the initiative, the leadership. You need to have great enthusiasm. You need to take responsibility. You need to be quick. You need to be effective. You need to really deal with unexpected problems in a way that most of the people in ground level jobs never have to. So I think the fact that you are at 35,000 feet, that adds to the complexity of the role. Basically, you need to think on your feet. Something that everyone is looking for, no matter the industry, no matter the company, is basically customer experience or customer-centric mindset. It's basically having the customer in mind and really just anticipate the needs and the expectations which cabin crew are perfectly suited for, especially those who work the business class, first class. You're not waiting for the passenger to ask, but you are anticipating it, which is a fantastic skill to have in any role. Let's not forget that you are first aid trained. You have the safety skills, which is very, very important when it comes to social care, healthcare related roles. The conflict management skills, how do you deal with that, again, at 35,000 feet? The problem solving skills, again, really the adaptability, the flexibility, the waking up at 2 a.m. or at Emirates, you sometimes you have to present yourself at like 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning because it's a non-stop sort of operation. So, but also the empathy, the compassion, the emotional intelligence that comes with the role, and you need to have that in order to qualify for the role, or to get hired into a role. And let's not forget about the sales skills, the ability to really meet targets, the ability to handle pressure, and also things like teamwork, cultural awareness, the communication, the interpersonal skills. These are the things that people don't think about when they are taking stock of their own skills. Basically, it's but you need to, because you need to highlight these to employers and make them understand how you might be a solution to their problem. Basically, those are the ones that I would really highlight. Maybe another one that I would really just mention, Brian, is brand presentation skills, the attention to detail. I think it's basically, no matter what company would you like, you're planning to join, that's going to be crucial. Image, brand ambassador, things like that, they play a very important role. And this is something that cabin crew can really provide and excel at. So
Yeah.
those are the ones that I would really highlight. There are many others, but these are the ones that really are properly transferable between industries and between roles.
Okay. A cabin crew member mentioned to me the other day, we were speaking about this, and she said to me, yes, but for flight deck crew, you guys are professionals, so it's easier for you now to promote yourselves as professionals. And my response was, that might be the case, but you've been in a professional industry for the past 15 years. So your time in that professional industry has to count for something. It's a very, very high profile industry with very high stakes and high consequences for mistakes, and that shouldn't be left out as well.
Exactly, and there is a tendency, having spoken to many crew all over the world, cabin crew, there is a tendency that they really undersell themselves. You shouldn't, because you're in a good position. You shouldn't be applying for roles that don't require the skill set that you already possess.
Yeah. Well, we're touching on that now. How do we highlight this to potential employers? How do we highlight these skills?
Again, I think LinkedIn is a wonderful opportunity to really just give context. The best way to highlight this, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's your cover letter, whether it's your CV, is giving context. By that, what do I mean by that? It's, if you say I'm adept at solving complex problems, you need to give specific examples of how you did that in your role. Yeah. So basically, that's what I mean by context, so that people outside of the industry really can understand and appreciate that, yes, this is really valuable, and this is really something that we can use in this non-aviation or non-flying context. It all comes down to storytelling, and it all comes down to your ability to really just communicate it effectively in writing, Brian, because hiring managers, recruiters are making a snap decision on you, on what you present on your CV. So these keywords, just pay attention to the job specification. That would be my advice. And really just highlight the ones that, the skills that they're looking for, and really just give examples of those, how you demonstrated that, how you did that in your flying career, so that you find that link, and you create that link between who you are, what you've done in the past, and where you would like to go next. Because we need to do a lot more, I think, to demonstrate employers outside of the industry, to really just make them realize the value of an experienced aviation professional, because I think it's still not very well known or not very well understood.
Yeah, I agree with you. And in terms of, again, it goes to being authentic and being unique. Any experiences that you had in the cabin, you can write about it, you can talk about it, and you can ultimately post about it and advertise yourself. You might need in this whole process to ask for help. We spoke about it earlier on, but what are the rules in place for going out and trying to reach people? What are the rules in place for what's an acceptable way of asking for help?
So I think the reasons why you need to go and do that, really seek other people's help, is number one, you don't know everyone. Your network is limited. You need to tap into other people's network, because they will be able to really just point you to the direction of someone who can actually help you. The other reason is basically you're not bothering people. You shouldn't be thinking about it that way. You would be surprised how open and how willing people are to help others who are genuinely in need of that help. And really, it's been demonstrated really many times, no matter where you're based in the world. Remember, you're not obligated to reciprocate the favor right away or at all. If you can, maybe at a later stage, and you're in a position to help the other person who helped you, that's great. But if you can't, that's okay as well. The way to do this is to be mindful of the fact that they might not be able to help you. Send an email, give them a call, explain your situation. Don't chase them every week, but have the long term in mind. Just because they can't help you today, or they don't have a lead to a job, it doesn't mean that in 2 or 3 or 4 months' time they won't. So it's always about building these relationships with the longer term in mind. Don't go out there and basically just ask people, okay, do you have a job? Do you know someone who has a job? People will most probably say no. And you have to have the humility. You have to have really the awareness, the emotional intelligence that, other people might be in just as difficult position as yourself, basically. So always try to add value to the other person as well. Ask, how can I be of help to you? How can I really add value to you as well? So just look at it from that point of view. Always ask this, because it's powerful.
Yeah, and we said already, your interview will probably be online. Your onboarding will be online. A lot of people aren't used to networking online. It's some people find it much easier to walk up to someone, shake their hand, introduce themselves, but we just simply don't have that option anymore. And you've got to put yourself out there. We spoke about LinkedIn already. It's a brilliant place to start networking, to start meeting people, and to start seeing what businesses and employers are looking for. And that'll allow you to adjust your plan going forward.
And this is why joining professional groups on LinkedIn, linked to your interest, your background, or where you would like to end up, It's a good way to keep abreast of industry news, company news, individuals who are working already in those organizations. It's a good way to connect with them, link with them, ask for an informational interview. My best advice for anyone listening is to explain your situation briefly, being made redundant, or I'm in the danger of that. I would like to understand what you do within your organization, how you got there. People will not say no to that. I think 9 out of 10 people will basically just be willing to share in a 5-10 minute conversation with you their journey and their story, and might be able to give you with some provide you some pointers in terms of how you can do the same.
Yeah, don't be scared to make that first step, is in other words what you're saying as well. Yeah.
No. That's the whole point of LinkedIn, and that's the whole point of even Facebook as well. A lot of people use Facebook as a fun tool. It can be used for professional purposes as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about what are certain ways that we can, or cabin crew can do. What things can they do to start enhancing their existing skills? We've spoken about transferable skills. That's ultimately skills they already have. You might want to build on those skills, and obviously e-learning courses and things like this are widely abundant right now and available. But what are some inexpensive ways one can use to stand out from the crowd, so to speak?
I think the best way to think about it is, again, sitting down with a piece of paper, understanding the industry, the sector, and the role that you would like to end up and you would like to target. You need to also have a look at the individuals who are already working in the industry. This is the reason why you need to have these informational interviews.
Yeah.
So you gather information about what you need to get there, or to get that role, and then understand whether it's Excel skills, or these PowerPoint skills, or these Word skills, or these basic mathematics skills, analytical skills. And there are so many free resources. I'm not talking about going out there and really doing paid courses or enrolling in expensive university degrees now. It's certainly, I would caution against that, because simply it's just might not be the best way to spend your money. But really, Udemy, LinkedIn Learning, even YouTube. I mean, YouTube is full of educational content. There are MOOCs, which is massive open online courses, which are free for the general public. You can get access to university level education from the world's top universities like MIT, Yale, Stanford for free. You only need to sign up, basically, and it's MOOC, MOOC, and just put it into Google. Identifying the skills and going out there and basically practicing Excel, practicing Word, practicing those basic Microsoft Office skills that you need for an office job, in the case of cabin crew, for example. Brushing up on math skills, and also keeping up with industry news, because that's how you prepare for an interview, Brian, these days. You need to be up to date on what's happening in the pharma sector, what's happening in the technology sector, what's happening in the healthcare, social care, in industries that are actually actively hiring at the moment. So
yeah, and this isn't just inexpensive. This is actually free. A lot of these things you mentioned are actually free. You can start doing this tomorrow. You just need an internet connection and you can start. I just want to go a little bit further back again, just back to LinkedIn, because I mentioned to you on our last interview, one of my goals that I've taken on personally is to try and encourage a lot of the pilots to get on LinkedIn and to start using it effectively. And just today, actually, out of interest, I was looking at my previous employer's page and all the employees on that page. And there were so few cabin crew actually signed into LinkedIn. It was quite an eye-opener for me. obviously the first step is to get on the platform. Can you just talk about quickly, obviously some people are going to be very scared to go and start posting articles and things like this. What's a good starting point? In other words, you got to set up your profile, but then what can you do next to actually start engaging with people?
Having an all-star, what LinkedIn calls an all-star profile, is not going to be enough. A lot of people have that, and a lot of people put in the efforts to really just make it really good, provide a lot of information. That's step number one. Step number two is to actively engage with the community, with the LinkedIn community, basically create connections, network there, join these groups that we talked about. And what really differentiates people on LinkedIn, Brian, is not only sharing curated content, like you come across with an interesting article, you share it, you make some commentary. That's good, that's fine. But it's not going to get you noticed. The thing that will really get you noticed is creating original content. And why is it important? It's because it gives you credibility. It gets you basically noticed by recruiters, by hiring managers. And this is another way of showing the world that you're actually doing your homework in terms of knowing a bit about the industry, learning a bit about the industry, making commentary about certain things that are happening in that particular industry. It doesn't have to be long. You can create a very short, very snappy LinkedIn article with your own views. And it just shows employers that, oh, actually this individual cares about it, really goes above and beyond, and not only has a presence on LinkedIn, but really uses it for what it's meant to be, which is a knowledge sharing tool and a massive billboard. It's an advertising billboard. It's basically what we're talking about here, Brian. LinkedIn is branding, marketing. It's an advertising tool, which is really still underpriced. You don't have to pay, free. It's a massive opportunity which is overlooked by a lot of people, not only in aviation, but in many other sectors.
Yeah, like you say, it's another thing that's free. It offers huge leverage. And if you're not utilizing it, you could be missing out, or you could be being left behind, Yeah, definitely worth looking at. And something for me that I found, I mean, I discovered you on LinkedIn a while ago, quite a long time before the pandemic. And a lot of what you were writing about actually influenced me, because it made me realize that those are the things I'm interested in too. And it's quite a nice thing that sort of 6 months later, here I am talking to you. And on top of that, after our last interview, the positive feedback that I got from other people that have now also connected with you, it's quite remarkable how this whole networking machine actually works. And in 2020, if you're not utilizing these available media sources, you will get left behind.
The one thing that I would also mention, Brian, before I forget it, is the advanced sort of social media marketing skills that some of the cabin crew has. I mean, don't forget that there are some out there, some people out there who have a very strong social media presence on things like Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah.
Some people have an incredible following on Instagram, which basically where they documented their jet-setting lifestyle, and they've accumulated a great amount of followers, or they have a blog. They have an influencer presence out there, which can be really useful for brands to really utilize their existing sort of brand presence and take advantage of that. So these marketing skills, social media marketing skills, are not to be overlooked, because some people out there in the cabin crew community are actually superstars and very well known.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Like I said earlier, I got such a soft spot for cabin crew. The airline I've been with for the last 10 years, the cabin crew and the flight deck crew were like family. It wasn't a big airline; it was a relatively small airline, and we were a team, and we were a good team. And it's almost like your family's been pulled apart, and that's why I jumped at this opportunity to talk to you tonight, because I would love to be able to help some of the cabin crew, even if it's just one. I think then we've done our job.
Exactly. And Brian, the other thing is, some people out there might be wondering, what sectors shall I be looking at? We were talking about the transferable skills. We were talking about how do you present them. I would just like to say a few words about possible sectors where you can really genuinely add value and are hiring. I would highlight two. Definitely healthcare. There is an acute need all over the world for first aid, safety skilled individuals out there. So healthcare and social care are those two areas that I would really highlight, where you can properly make a difference, and you will probably get a job because there is an acute need for people with your skill set. Some of the airlines out there who have really utilized very successfully their cabin crew, or Singapore Airlines as nurse aides. They've really put them into use, and they are utilizing them up until today. And also SAS, Scandinavian in the Nordics, they've also utilized a great number of their cabin crew in hospitals, in care homes, where they have been really successful and could really almost continue their role in a ground level setting, basically. So those would be the ones that I would really just highlight and would really encourage anyone to look into.
Yeah, there's nothing better than being able to get yourself a new position and also provide a level of support that's much needed in the world. Yeah. Arpad, always, it's such a pleasure talking to you. I'm sure we can go on and talk for another couple of hours. This is definitely not going to be the last time we chat. And I know the cabin crew in South Africa are really going to appreciate what you had to say. I'm going to leave your details, your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. And I really encourage a lot of the cabin crew members out there to click on your profile and connect with you, because it's well worth your while.
Very happy to have a initial discussion as well. Basically, if they would find it helpful, very happy to do that. So
thank you, Arpad, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Bye-bye.